This is why people vote for Trump. They say in politics, liberals are the gas pedal and conservatives are the brakes. And I'm generally with the gas pedal, but not if we're driving off a cliff. On the trans issue, America is no ands, ifs, or buts about it, absolutely alone in the world now, an outlier country. Last month, England's National Health Service announced that there's not enough evidence to support the safety or clinical effectiveness of puberty blockers for third grade.
Bill Maher takes on Canada's woke utopia myth for years. The woke left has treated Canada like a shining example of what the world should be, a snowy liberal paradise that America ought to copy. But not everyone's buying that frosty fantasy, and Bill Maher's one of them. In a sharp episode of Real Time with Bill Maher, he completely dismantled the maple syrup dream in a fiery, no-holds-barred monologue. Buckle up, this one hits hard.
Canada was where every woke white college kid wearing pajama pants outdoors who'd had it up to here with America's racist patriarchy dreamt of living someday. I mean, besides Gaza. There's only one problem with thinking everything's better in Canada. It's not. Not anymore, anyway. Last year, Canada added 1.3 million people, which is a lot in 1 year, the equivalent of the U.S. adding 11 million migrants in 1 year. And now they're experiencing a housing crisis even worse than ours. And we're sleeping in tents.
Right from the start, Maher dives straight into the woke left's sugar-coated image of Canada and starts tearing it apart. The first topic he hits? The country's housing disaster, driven by wide-open immigration policies that America's progressives admire as if there's some golden ticket. The truth, however, is grim. Canada is facing a 3.5 million unit housing shortage by 2030, a gap so massive that it makes California look like a real estate success story. On top of that, more than 1 in 5 households are already spending over 30% of their income just to keep a roof over their heads. Yet, the woke crowd still points to Canada like it's the promised land. Maher doesn't just laugh at that idea. He completely burns it down.
The median price of a home here is $346,000. In Canada, converted to U.S. dollars, it's $487,000. If Barbie moved to Winnipeg, she wouldn't be able to afford her dream house, and Ken would be working at Tim Hortons.
Homes in Canada are painfully expensive, and the numbers are enough to make anyone's jaw drop. The average home costs between $500,000 and $540,000, while in major cities like Vancouver and Toronto, prices shoot past $750,000 and can even top $1 million US without hesitation. Now compare that to the US, where the typical home sits around $350,000 to $400,000, and suddenly, Canada doesn't look like much of a dream anymore. The woke left keeps chanting about following Canada's grand blueprint, but let's be honest, most can't even afford life in America as it is. Imagine adding Canadian-level prices on top of that. Maher's point is crystal clear. Copy Canada, and you don't get affordable living. You get price out your own front door.
Because of mortgage debt, Canada has the highest debt-to-GDP ratio of any G7 nation. I don't know what that means, but it sounds bad. So does their vaunted healthcare system, which ranks dead last among high-income countries in access to primary health care and ability to see a doctor in a day or two. And it's not for lack of spending. Of the 30 countries with universal coverage, Canada spends over 13% of its economy on it, which is a lot of money for free health.
Canada's problems are far worse than liberal cheerleaders ever imagined. The cracks in their so-called utopia are widening fast. And here's what makes Maher's words sting. He's not a conservative hardliner. He's a liberal. Someone the left once proudly claimed as their own. That's exactly why his criticism hits so hard. When someone like Bill Maher starts calling out Canada, it's not just a small crack. It's a complete shatter of the illusion. But Maher isn't ranting for attention. He's holding up a mirror to America, smirking and asking, is this really what you want here? Because if Canada is a model, then America should get ready for sky-high housing costs, broken promises, and a mountain of regret. And the best part? Maher is just getting started.
I'm not saying Canada still isn't a great country. It is, but those aren't paradise numbers. If Canada was an apartment, the lead feature might be America adjacent. And if America was a rental car, Canada would be America or similar. And again, honestly, Canada, I'm not saying any of this because I enjoy it. I don't, because I've always enjoyed you. But I need to cite you as a cautionary tale to help my country. And the moral of that tale is, yes, you can move too far left. And when you do, you wind up pushing the people in the middle to the right.
Now, is Bill Maher suddenly confessing that he's turned conservative? Not quite. But this is what happens when you wander too far into leftist fantasyland. When the left drifts so far off course that even lifelong liberals can't stomach it anymore, the pendulum naturally swings back. Some liberals don't move right out of love for conservatism. They simply wake up to the madness around them. Take Joe Rogan, for example. Once celebrated as a progressive voice of counterculture, now labeled right-wing, just because he questions woke dogma. Or Elon Musk, a man who builds electric cars and rockets, not exactly a conservative resume. Yet he's been branded center-right thanks to the left's meltdown. Maher fits that same pattern. He hasn't changed his core beliefs. The left has just sprinted so far off the edge that anyone standing still looks conservative by comparison.
American voters think happens when there's no one putting a check on extreme wokeness, like the saga of Canadian shop teacher Kayla Lemieux, whose pronouns are she, her, and those. Kayla is now back to being a guy named Kerry, but 2 years ago when they showed up to teach children, the progressive high school they taught at said that they, the school, not the person. Really, you couldn't have found another word. We were using that one. Anyway, okay. They were committed to a safe environment for gender expression. Safe for who? What about the children?
And frankly, this is what happens when society decides everyone can redefine reality and the rest of us have to play along. The result? Total confusion. Take one shocking classroom example. Students couldn't even figure out the gender of their own teacher. One day, he shows up in a dress, demanding to be treated as a woman, and expecting everyone to play along. The very next day, he returns to identifying as a man, as if the previous act never happened. The students were left completely baffled, wondering who exactly was standing in front of them. This isn't education, it's performance, and not the inspiring kind. It's the kind that leaves kids confused and unsure what's real. When identity shifts with the wind, clarity disappears, and what's left is a mess of contradictions. And here's the kicker. These aren't isolated incidents happening in some experimental lab. They're happening in Canada, the country American liberals love to idolize. This is their golden model, their so-called symbol of progressive perfection. But peel back that maple syrup gloss, and what do you find? Sky-high housing costs, chaotic identity politics, confused classrooms, and government experiments masquerading as policies. Still, the American left looks north like starstruck fans, convinced that Canada is living the dream. But Maher makes it clear, if that's what utopia looks like, it's built on debt, dysfunction, and delusion. Before liberals demand that America follows suit, maybe they should take a harder look at what's really happening up there. Spoiler, it's not the fantasy they've been selling.
This is why people vote for Trump. They say in politics, liberals are the gas pedal and conservatives are the brakes. And I'm generally with the gas pedal, but not if we're driving off a cliff. On the trans issue, America is no ands, ifs, or buts about it, absolutely alone in the world now, an outlier country. Last month, England's National Health Service announced that there's not enough evidence to support the safety or clinical effectiveness of puberty blockers for third grade.
Next voice. And Maher's right. Donald Trump didn't win out of nowhere. He won because millions of Americans, including moderates and disillusioned liberals, got sick of endless wokeness from the left. The Democratic National Committee turned itself into a circus of identity politics, cancel culture, and virtue signaling. And people wanted out that IT wasn't just conservatives rolling their eyes. Moderates and independents walked away, too. Even younger voters, the ones Democrats assumed they'd always have, started tuning out. They didn't want to trade freedom of thought for ideological policing. The DNC became less of a political party and more of a lecture hall. But Americans don't vote for lectures. They vote for leadership. And when the left couldn't provide that, they practically handed the White House to Donald Trump on a silver platter.
So too with all the other good place countries in direct opposition to America's choice to affirm children's wishes on switching gender, no matter the age or psychiatric history. The far left, which always like to use, well, Europe does it. Yeah, no, that doesn't work on this one anymore.
People. And without protection, there's no peace. Only chaos dressed up as policy that in the end, Maher's takedown of Canada and the radical left isn't just comedy, it's truth. From housing collapse to gender confusion, border disasters, and fentanyl devastation, that utopia crumbles fast. America doesn't need Canada's blueprint. It needs sanity, leadership, and reality. And that's where we'll leave it for today. If you enjoyed this breakdown, don't forget to like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.